Stakeholder engagement levels. There are different levels of stakeholder engagement that the project leader can consider. These levels will depend on the engagement strategy, the degree of participation, and the characteristics of the group of stakeholders. The project leader can use four different levels of engagement: communication, consultation, participation, and partnership. These levels are directly related to two factors: the number of people and the intensity of engagement. The chart shows that communication is preferred when there is a large number of people that the project wants to engage. At the other extreme, there is partnership, used for a very few key stakeholders that require a more intense level of engagement. In between, the levels of consultation and participation have a mix of both factors. Here's another model that uses the levels of interest and influence to determine the level of engagement with the various project stakeholders. The model shows a relationship with the levels of influence and interest stakeholders have on the project and matches with a corresponding level of engagement. At the bottom is the type of engagement that requires minimal effort and is useful when there is a need to engage with a large number of stakeholders. At the top is the type of engagement that requires the most effort, but used only for a few number of stakeholders. Communication, which requires low effort, can be used for a large number of stakeholders. Consultation requires more effort and is used for a medium-sized group of stakeholders. Participation has an increased level of effort and is good for a few number of stakeholders. Partnership. This level requires the most effort and is used only on very few key stakeholders. The first level is when the project leader needs to engage with a large number of stakeholders that have low influence and low interest. The goal is to provide them with a balanced, objective, accurate, and consistent information to assist these stakeholders to understand the problem, the alternatives, opportunities, and/or solutions the project will implement. This is usually a one-way type of engagement where the project leader will send or publish information. Depending on the circumstances, there could be some two-way communication to help clarify the information. The second level is consultation. This requires a bit more effort and is useful for stakeholders that have low influence but high interest. Consultation is used to get feedback on alternatives or decisions the project needs to take. It can have the form of a survey, a focus group, and public meetings to solicit information and opinions from stakeholders. The third level is participation. It's a higher level of engagement. It's good for stakeholders that have high power but low interest. This level requires even more effort, so it's important that it's used on key stakeholders. Participation includes opportunities to work towards a common goal and address any concerns the stakeholders might have. Participation is critical in project decisions that will impact the stakeholders in this group. The goal is to increase their level of interest and support to the project. The highest level of engagement is partnership. This is the level that requires the most effort and is useful for stakeholders that have high levels of influence and high levels of interest. Partnership is when both parties have an investment in the project objectives. It includes working together to formulate solutions and incorporate their advice and recommendations in the final decision. The goal is to sustain their level of support and interest in the project. This model is useful to prioritize the level of engagement with stakeholders. The different levels of stakeholder engagement are appropriate depending on the objectives, the desired outcomes, the timeframes, the resources, and levels of interest and influence. Stakeholders will have differing degrees of engagement with the project, depending on many factors such as the information they have on the project goals and previous experience with the organization on similar projects. The project leader needs to identify how each stakeholder is engaged with the project. Stakeholder engagement can be also classified using the following categories. They are unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, and leading. Using this information, the project leader can then plan for the desired degree of stakeholder engagement with the project. The Stakeholder Engagement Assessment Matrix is a technique to identify the current and the desired state of stakeholder engagement with the project. It can be used to capture and track the stakeholder current state of engagement, marked as letter C, and the desired state of engagement, marked with a letter D. For example, stakeholder 3 is a desired engagement state, while stakeholders 1 and 2 require further communications and additional actions to move them to the desired state of engagement. It's recommended that this matrix is completed near the start of the project and then reviewed or updated as the project makes progress.